Today, we are talking about the gut again and the importance of gut regularity. Tell me down below if any of these symptoms have at any point affected you. Perhaps you felt dizzy or disoriented, or keep on getting these headaches, or even biliousness and nausea and vomiting. How about a dry mouth? And then I know some people keep on burping and belching. What about just feeling tired? You know, fatigue that you can't seem to shake off. That zest for life has been eroded for some reason. All those, I'm sure all of us have experienced at some point in our lives. If I were to tell you that you might actually be making alcohol in your gut, and the alcohol is contributing to all those symptoms, what would you say? It is a known fact that overuse of starchy, sugary foods in the presence of yeast overgrowth in the gut will lead to fermentation. Doesn't that sound like the perfect recipe for a brewery? That's what it's called, AUTO-BREWERY syndrome. One thing that can lead to overgrowth of a fungus, and therefore yeast, and therefore auto-brewery because of fermentation of starchy and sugary foods, would be if the gut microbiome has been disturbed. And that is so common. It's totally common. Okay, I'm a medical doctor and I know that people use antibiotics. Yes, they have a place. If there is a flaring infection and you have no choice but to use an antibiotic, by all means. But I also know that there are incidents when there is overuse of antibiotics or there is inappropriate use of antibiotics. And this just wipes out the good gut bacteria. And then there's yeast overgrowth, which then will ferment starchy and sugary foods. And when that process happens, you have ethanol, also known as alcohol. And you might swear that I don't drink, I never touch that stuff. But if you have experienced those symptoms that I started with, it could well be that you have that challenge of yeast overgrowth. Now, that's not a good thing. So let's get back to the basics of why it is important to make sure that your gut functions well. So if all this is making absolute sense, I'll be so happy if at least you take that on and decide that, hey, this is good. So this is a call to action that is quite unique. To avoid yeast overgrowth, watch what you're doing. So back to the mind or the brain. Your mind that sits in your brain tells you to decide how to choose the food you eat. It also ensures that you choose foods that will not ferment and cause the brewery to really flourish. And then you also choose the foods that will help your gut microbiome, so that instead of an overgrowth of yeast that cause fermentation, you get a good colony of bacteria that don't cause fermentation. And before long, obviously you have to be patient about it, but before long, those good foods will ensure that the brewery shuts down. What you need to do now, and this is a bit of homework and a call to action, get yourselves a little notebook. Get a little notebook and note how your brain feels, or how your mood is, or whether you have symptoms like dizziness and nausea and dry mouth and burping and belching and fatigue. And just note it down and try and correlate it to the food that you may have eaten, not just now, not just in the last hour, but maybe over the past week even. Because as you might know, fermentation is a process and it takes a bit of time for it to mature into a brew that will give you those symptoms. So that is a different twist to the gut-brain connection. I hope all this is making absolute sense. If it is, let me know. And also, remember my hashtag that I've introduced, Ask Why. Hashtag Ask Why. Always seek knowledge. What hurts you? What harms you? What heals you? What helps you? Because the more you know what is causing you your symptoms, the better you'll be able to manage them.